Hello, everyone, and welcome to Databases. So, by the end of this lesson, I hope that everybody will be able to create databases, load data into them, and play with databases. So, let's go over some things that we already did. We actually did this stuff on day one. I just added this to the content last night. It's this installing Postgres thing. So you've already done this part, but if you wipe your computer, if you need to do this again sometime, that's what you do. And generally no harm in doing that multiple times. So if I did sudo apt install Postgresql and Postgresql contrib. Already on the newest version. Ooh. So my other dependencies got updated though. Cool. So then, it's an easy step to forget. Sudo service PostgreSQL restart. If it hasn't been started, it will also start it. So it's a good, handy command to have around. Sudo service PostgreSQL restart. If you ever get a message that's something like, can you make sure that the such and such daemon is running and listening for connections on port 5432? That's what you need to do. So conceptually, what happens there? So this is your computer. And you've got your text editor open, and you've got a web server running on it, and maybe a second web server running on it. You've got a browser. And maybe you're writing code. It's updating what's on the web server. The browser is requesting stuff from the web server too, so you're seeing that. Then you might also have a database server. Now, unlike these web servers, we don't need to use Parcel. We don't need to use Light Server. They're always running in the background. And then both of these can talk to the database server. In production, these end up being completely different computers, and they talk to each other over networks. When we're developing stuff, these are all just services that are running on our computer. So you have a program that's just running like this in the background all the time, listening for stuff. Anybody know the name for that? It starts with a D.
The driver?
Good guess. Driver is what allows this server to talk to the database server, even though they use different protocols and whatever else. That driver is what allows them to communicate.
Is it a daemon, like you just said?
Like the old-timey spelling for demon. Because that's kind of what it is. It's a little gremlin that lives in your computer and is always listening for database requests. So we call those daemons. You may have also seen that word when you send an email to an email address that doesn't exist, and it goes, "Hey, the mailer daemon couldn't find that person." It's the exact same idea. You might also have like an email process that's just running in the background all the time, listening for emails to come in. Those are daemons. So the way we start the Postgres daemon is like that. This is relatively easy to do on Linux. It sucks on macOS and windows. Like, in the best case scenario, it's just this. The other half of the time, there's a whole bunch of other hoops you have to jump through. But anyway, everybody should be there already. If you're concerned, how you'd find out is which pSQL. And if anything comes back from that, that means you got it installed. Questions so far?
I was going to say my Mac has been doing this the entire time that you were talking, and it just finished.
Nice. Excellent. So let's differentiate between a couple different things. Some related words that don't actually mean the same thing. Okay, so these are all terms that we see fly around with this a lot. So SQL is a language. It is a standard. It's about 50 years old. I'm not aware of any other way that people reliably work with relational databases. SQL is pretty much the only one. So no matter who's making your database, you're probably writing SQL of some flavor. Database is the concept of like electronic storage. And the reason we need them is everything else in our full stack. Go back to Old Man Coverly's favorite diagram. Clients make an HTTP request to servers. Well, when this server restarts, all of its like variables get reset. When it does whatever your start script is, it's doing that as if it were doing them for the first time. It doesn't have any memory of what like used to be there. Same thing on the client side. Absent things like local storage, which are kind of like a client-side database, your app starts totally fresh every time. So how does a user create an account? And then when I restart the server, how come their account doesn't disappear? The purpose of a database is it is what the stored data is. Everything else on the client, so this is our like Angular kind of stuff. Everything on the server, our Spring Boot kind of stuff. We say that these are volatile. Whenever you restart them, whatever state that they have goes away. So if we have some state that needs to stick around, that's where it goes. You can think of the client and the server. This is all data in motion. This is data at rest. So database is this concept of electronic storage. An RDBMS is a relational database management system. Not all databases are relational. All the stuff that we're going to do in this program is, but there are other models for how data can be stored. So like you may have heard the term NoSQL before. That's specifically non-relational data. It gets stored just like, think nested JavaScript objects. We used to have objects inside of objects inside of objects. That's how NoSQL in general tends to store data. And there's advantages to it. Not a lot, though. Turns out we kind of got this right 50 years ago. And so a relational database management system is something like Postgres. It's a software for interacting with a database. Like your database gets stored in your computer as just like files. So the structure for which things are added to those files and read from those files and stuff, that's a relational database management system. And there's lots of them. We've got Postgres, MySQL, Oracle, MariaDB, SQL Server. The Amazon one is called, shoot, I'm spacing on it right now. Anyway, there's lots of these. They do basically the same thing. They mostly differ in terms of like which types they support. For example, Postgres has a geo-coordinates type. And so you can do things like query the distance between two records based on like some geo thing that they have. You can also do NoSQL. This is one of the reasons NoSQL databases are kind of dead, is that there's a NoSQL style data type in Postgres. So you could do a relational database system. And what few advantages NoSQL really does have, that's just a data type. So Postgres has like hundreds of those that don't exist in some of the other database management systems. And then the other thing that the different RDBMSs have is like different kinds of support for being split up across multiple computers. Like historically, that's been the advantage that Oracle has. SQL Server also, is that they're very good at being split up across multiple like non-physically co-located places. That's like, Postgres can do that. It's just harder, a little bit less support for it. I don't believe MySQL or MariaDB can do that at all. And then like each of these have like companies that they're associated with. So like MySQL and Oracle are both owned by Oracle. MySQL is an open source project. Oracle bought it. That pissed some people off. So MariaDB is a fork of MySQL. It's its own thing at this point. SQL Server is a Microsoft product. I mentioned in Discord earlier, I've never heard of somebody using SQL Server without using like the full Microsoft stack. And that's kind of what it has going for it, is that out of the box, it plays really nice with like a C#.NET backend and an IIS server. That's Microsoft server technology. Like something I love pointing out to people is that it's easy to think of Microsoft and Apple and Google as like competitors. That's actually not strictly true. Like sometimes they make similar products, but they really tailor them to very different things. Like Apple primarily sells a consumer experience. Microsoft sells primarily like business solutions. And so they have a programming language. They have an editor for that programming language. They have server software. They have database software. And all of it is guaranteed to work with everything else. And so that also allows them to sell consulting services around all of this stuff and big bulk fucking licensing and like a lot of things like that. And so that's pretty much the only reason to use SQL Server, but it's not a dumb one. So that leaves Postgres, which is open source like MariaDB, way, way, way more featureful. And one of the things that I think we're starting to see with open source software over time is that it always starts out like, how will they compete with the commercial product? Those people have all this money. But the problem is that, like, you'll start, where am I? There it is. What happens is that this stuff starts as like, oh, the commercial product is here and the open source version of it is here. But the open source version gets steadily better over time. And this commercial product has all this backing. It starts getting a little bit better, and then they go out of business. And then somebody else starts something, and they get a lot of, and then we go out of business. And then all of a sudden you end up in this situation where the open source one has actually been around longer and is more stable and has more support. Oh no, but we came out with a better version of it. And then we went out of business. Then after a while, it just kind of becomes hard to compete with the open source version. Postgres is kind of in that stage of the life cycle at this point, where I think it'd be very difficult to make a commercial product that is better than them. I think Oracle can make a pretty fair claim that they've been around this whole time. There's a lot of corner cases they handle that Postgres doesn't, but a lot of other stuff. I know a bunch of people that started database startups in the last like 10 years. It has yet to go well. Anyway, so that's what Postgres is. Postgres is just one of our RDBMSs. And pSQL is a CLI app for working with Postgres databases. So that's kind of the landscape here. Before we get our hands dirty, any questions?
When you say a database handles data at rest, is it the same thing when you say something's restful?
No, that's a great question. Totally unrelated things.
Okay.
REST is REST, the API concept, is an acronym for representational state transfer, and is like a philosophy around how APIs should be designed. Has nothing to do with the concept of state or data at rest, even though they use the same word.
Okay, thank you.
So just to clarify, we need the MySQL CLI and the Postgres together.
No, you need pSQL, which comes with Postgres when you install it.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah.
I somehow managed to install them separately.
Yay! Did you?
I went through that link that that you provided, the school thing. What's that? W3 Schools or Free Code Camp or something.
This is the right way to install Postgres. On
I did that too.
Ubuntu
It was just
system. What was that?
pSQL app thing that I had to go through with the video.
Yeah, if you install it through a package manager, you get pSQL for free. Other questions so far?
Would SQL be a object-oriented programming language?
No, not even close, actually.
Okay.
So the mental model that SQL uses for organizing their code, honestly, I don't think you could even classify it as procedural or functional or object-oriented. It's purely declarative. So you describe what the data you'd like to see is, and then you get that back. So I'd put it in the same category as something like CSS. CSS is also like a declarative language. But CSS is a declarative markup language. SQL is a declarative query language. It's not a programming language. You can't write programs with it. But it is a language in the same vein as something like HTML or CSS. More questions? Keep them coming. So the most handy database command that you have also comes installed with Postgres. And that is create DB. So
That is a handy keyword.
it is a handy keyword. Oh man, I'm so sorry. Way easier than trying to do it like with the SQL commands. Ugh.
I mean, it got to work, but that command would have been awesome.
Beautiful. So this sudo u Postgres means, hey, super user, that's the SU, do as the user Postgres that also gets created when you install Postgres. As the Postgres user, run the create DB command and make a database named IMDb. So if I do that, IMDb. Oh, yeah, no kidding. Create DB. Cool, so I don't get anything back. That's generally a good sign in the Unix world. As if something went wrong, it usually tells you, like this. And there we go. That's it. That's all you need to create a database. And then to connect to that database, I probably don't even need to be the Postgres user. You might. I do IMDb. There we go. Now I'm working with the database. It's waiting for me to write some queries. All right, let's do hair and eye color. Let's play with that a little bit.
So what if you created that IMDb and then you did the PSQL IMDb and you get a fatal error that says that your role doesn't exist?
Yeah, I just got that.
That's
Use
fine.
your
Then just
sudo.
do it with sudo instead. So that'd be sudo u Postgres psql IMDb.
Okay,
So do
thank
we
you.
have to sudo every one we create and go into?
There's an alternative. You can add your user to the Postgres group in Unix, and then you won't have to do it anymore, which is what I did. Otherwise, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's because the only user that by default has like control over databases on your computer is this Postgres user. And so you need to impersonate that user anytime you want to interact with the database. All right, this hair and eye color exercise, I'll throw the link in Discord chat. Let's go ahead and clone this buddy down. All right, I'm going to git clone that repo. I'm going to hop into SQL hair and eye color. And this is what I got. Nothing up this sleeve, nothing up this sleeve.
Hey, Kyle,
Yep.
quick question. So when we cloned that down, it didn't ask for a password like it usually does. Is there a reason why?
No, it also shouldn't ask for a password ever. If it's asking for a password, that usually means that you're doing the HTTPS one instead of the SSH one that we set up on the first day.
You also could set up your SSH with a password. If you did
also
that, go and turn that off because that's the most obnoxious thing ever.
It really is.
Yeah, I did that, and for what it's worth, it did ask me for a password when I cloned it down, like it always does.
Usually, okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So when you're staring this thing down, we have that SQL file. Let's take a peek inside there. All of these are SQL statements. Hey, statement, there's that word again. You could probably guess your way through what it's doing. If there's a table already called hair, get rid of it. If there's a table called I already, get rid of it. Create a table called hair that has those three things going on. Create a table called I that has these three things going on. Add these 5 records to the hair table. Add these 5 records to the I table. So that's what's inside that SQL file. We're going to make a database for it. So we can do that sudo u Postgres create DB hair and eye color. Follow along with me if you'd be so kind. So when we want to run a SQL file against a SQL database, starts out the same. And you put the name of the database, and then you use this F flag for file, and then the name of a file. And then it's going to run that file in that database. Mira. I do sudo u Postgres psql hair and eye color -f and then that SQL file.
I don't know if anyone else can see that, but okay.
And I get all this feedback. I dropped a table, I dropped a table, I made a table, I made a table, and I inserted 10 records.
Hey, Kyle, I actually got an error on the first one that says it could not connect to the server.
So when that happens, who can tell Lauren what we do?
Restart it.
How?
Well, I gotta look that up, Kyle.
There was a command for that in the reading. I know that. I don't know what it is offhand.
There it is.
It's a sudo service Postgres restart.
Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Cool. So once we've done that, this hair and eye color database, it's got 2 tables with 5 records apiece in them, and that means that we can use pSQL to go into that database and explore. So the way that we do that, sudo u Postgres pSQL hair and eye color. All right, now we're in. So if I want to explore this data, I have 2 kinds of tools. The first kind of tool is Postgres commands. These are not SQL commands. You'll know that you're doing a Postgres command because they all start with \. And then there's SQL commands. So a Postgres command that's super handy is \DT. That tells you what tables do I have in here. You can also do DTI, It'll narrow it down. Or, so that DT is describe table. You also say describe I, and that'll tell us what each of the columns on there are. Those are like bread and butter commands. /D and /DT. There's tons of them. If you look at help, \question mark. This is all of the different Postgres commands. And like, there's a bunch of them. But the one that we care about, hey, what tables do we have? Hey, what's in that table? If those are the only two Postgres commands you know, you'll be okay.
I was able to get the database to pull up, but not the file.
You were not able to run the file?
Right. It says it doesn't exist.
Are you in the folder that has the file?
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you screen share? Let's take a look.
Okay. Well, first I typed it wrong. So obviously, and then I put the SQL at the back, and then I didn't.
Oh, you called the database har I. So it said sudo u Postgres create db har I.
Right. The database came up, or the.
Okay. Yeah, and now you're trying to p-SQL into har-and-i-color. That's not what you called the database, though.
Okay, so I need you to just do that with just the database then.
Yeah, the SQL file, once your database has run it, that's it.
Okay.
It's just instructions on how to set that up.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I hate to be the bump in the log again. My terminal is saying -F is not a valid option.
Let's dig in. Screen share.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
No, you should be pumped to be the bump in the log. It's what we're here to do. Otherwise, I'd just say, what, did I stutter when I was writing this? All right, so sudo u Postgres create db. It's because you're not creating the database anymore. You already made it. So you want to impersonate the Postgres user and then run the p-SQL command on the har and I-color database with the F flag.
Gotcha.
Auto-completion, auto-completion, auto-completion.
Oh, I didn't know it could do that. That's awesome. Okay.
There you go.
I'm just an idiot. Thank you.
Flavor country. What else? Who else has one?
I have another question, but it might be further along. How do you edit the database?
Oh, that's what we're doing next.
Okay.
Any other questions before we get there?
I can't even access the damn database. I've tried rebooting. I have no idea what I've done.
Let's take a look. Tiffany, go ahead and throw your screen up and let's work through it.
Well, my screen is blank because I've rebooted. So.
Okay. So, all right, you're impersonating your Postgres user. Have you already created the database? Did you get that far?
No.
Okay.
I have not.
Cool. So let's run not p-SQL, but we're going to run the create db command.
Oh, I did do that. So I've got hair. I did this. And
it's not in the file either.
That's fine.
Not yet.
As long as it was loaded. Let's get this far. Cool. You're in there. That's good. Give me a
it has no data.
DT.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Give me a \DT. Cool. So now we just need to load the data in. If you do Control-D, it'll get you out of this. You can also do \Q. All right, so navigate down to that Git repo that you cloned.
Navigating down. I did that in Visual Studio Code.
Yeah, but it's still on your computer. So take me to the folder that you cloned your repo into.
This is it.
Give me an ls. Looks like you're in your home directory.
I am. That's where I put it.
Okay,
but
that's
it's
not the
not
directory
showing.
though, right? So this would have been the...
I don't even think it's in here.
SQL hair and eye color. So go into
Oh,
that
here
folder.
it is. Oh, it starts with SQL. I didn't even notice that. I was looking for hair and eye. Oops. SQ.
Cool, very nice. All right, so this is where that SQL file is. If you do an ls,
Sorry, I can't even see my screen anymore. I gotta change things here. Sorry.
you're fine.
LS.
All right, so that hair and eye color SQL file, we want to run that against the database that you created. So to do that, you're going to do sudo -u Postgres. So we're going to impersonate the Postgres user. And then we want to run the psql command.
Just right there?
Yep.
No, psql.
And we're going to run it with the -f flag. And then a space. And then that hair and eye color file.
The one that I created with all the dashes?
No, the one that you cloned down that's in this folder you just listed.
All right, so I should be able to do this.
Yeah,
okay.
There you go. All right, run
and
it.
Then
sorry, the user is Postgres no QL. It is not always obvious when you use Postgres, when you use PostgreSQL. The user is Postgres. There you go. Very nice.
Okay.
So now to get into that database, press up, and then delete that file and the -f flag.
Delete this file with the -f? No.
So just,
this one.
Just hit the delete key a bunch of times. There you go. There you go. Just like that. And then add the name of the database that you made. Oh, that might be a problem. I don't think we did that with the file we ran that against, which means it ran it again. That's fine. No, keep going, keep going. Now we're going to do that -f thing again, so we actually put this data in the correct database.
-f.
Sorry, -f.
A dash, like not a slash. Sorry.
And now that file name, the SQL file.
It won't. Oh, it will autofill. Okay. Then hit enter.
Yep. Because otherwise what we did is we put it in the default database, which is confusing. So if you press up and get rid of that file name and the -f flag.
This right here?
Yep, keep going. There you go.
There?
Now run that. And give me a /DT. Hey, flavor country.
Thank you. I was so confused.
All right, who else has one?
So I had to change my username because when I was running sudo-u Postgres, my computer kept saying unknown user Postgres. So I went on like GitHub and it said like, I guess for Mac, like change your username to whatever, and then it should work. And I think it worked for me.
So you're
I don't
on
know
Mac?
if that's gonna. Yeah.
It should have made a Postgres user for you. How did you install?
The instructions you gave for Mac, it was correct.
Curious. Are you able to get
share?
into the database and seed it and stuff?
I don't know.
Why don't you screen share? Let's take a look.
Yeah. Let's see. Stop one. All right. So this is where I am now. I just put in my name for the username, and so I'm here now. So I'm not sure if that's correct, or will not using Postgres cause any issues in the future?
No, it's fine. If you can get in, it's not that big a deal at all.
Okay.
So do a Control D to get out of that. Have you already tried to run that SQL file?
No.
Let's try doing that now.
Okay.
So just press up, and then add -F, and then that file name.
So okay, so that would be the pair.
Yep, and tab complete, tab complete, tab complete. There you go. All right, very nice. Now press up, and then just delete that file name and the -F. There you go. Fire it off.
Just hit enter?
Just hit enter. Give me a
Nice.
\DT. Fire it off. Oh, interesting. Why?
I think the other
He did the wrong slash.
Oh, thank you guys.
That'll do it.
Bam.
Hey, beautiful. Okay, cool. You're in Flavor Country too. Anybody else need a express ticket? All right, let's make some stuff. So once you're in this database, you can just type SQL commands. So for example, if I want to see what's inside the I table, I can do select all from I, and you can hit enter. The way that you know that that you're not on a fresh command, a fresh command starts with equals here. One that you're still writing has a dash there. And it knows that you're done with a command when you, wait for it, do a semicolon. So when I do that, it'll actually run the query and tell me what's in there. If I want to narrow that down, I want all 3 people with blue eyes. I can say, hey, give me everything from I where I color, that's the name of this table here, or this column, where I color equals brown, and then execute. And that gives me all the matches. If I want only the usernames of people that have brown eyes, say select username from I where I color equals brown. And I get just the names. I don't even get this brown 3 times. I don't get their IDs. If I wanted their ID and their username, but hey, I already know that the eye color is brown. You don't need to tell me that every time. I could say select ID, comma, username from I where eye color equals brown. The things that I just did, that's what every developer knows that about SQL. I would say a good 80% of the time, that is everything that they know about SQL. But like, those are the things that you need to have like right under your fingers as a dev. Everything else, you can kind of look up. Other things like joins and stuff, they take a little bit of practice. And like, if you don't do them a lot, you forget them. But this is the stuff that you got to know. And if you know that, you probably know enough SQL to like get by.
I think I did not realize that it was actually done in the terminal.
Well, it's one way to do it. You can also like write this stuff in a server script and then have it send these requests to a database to run. That's also real. So for example, develop Denver's server There we go. Like, sometimes you do SQL-like languages, and you write that in like your server code. Or let's see, this one was Brian, so he probably just wrote the queries directly sometimes. Let's see, did he do any of these that were just pure SQL? Thought he did. Anyway, you run it on the command line when you're exploring stuff. And you know what? Like, you kind of need to explore stuff a lot. Anytime, like when I figure out how many things that each of you has submitted, I log into the remote database and I run a query and I run a little aggregate function that counts up everybody's submissions. I could write a web front end for that. I probably should. It'd certainly be a lot easier. But I don't know. That takes a non-zero amount of time. And as you've all seen, it's not like I'm like flush with time. And so, yeah, it's a report I run 4 times ever. So I just log into the database and run a little query. That's one of Mrs. Coberly's jobs also. She's a data analyst. And so companies will hire her to look for patterns in their database and that kind of thing. So you kind of need to be skilled with both. And I would say it's unusual, not unheard of, and not stupid, but it's unusual to write actual SQL on a server when you're querying a database. Like with Spring Boot, we're not going to write any SQL commands. If you're doing bread and butter, normal stuff, like give me all the eyes, give me all the eyes that are brown, there's already like, that stuff is all abstracted out. So what that ends up looking like in Java is you call find all. Find all is defined by the framework. And like what that ends up doing is it generates a SQL query called that's like select all from dog. But you don't write that directly. The framework handles all that for you. You say what you want. You say, I want all the dogs. I want to find a dog by their ID. I want to add a new dog. You do that kind of stuff. But when I'm trying to debug a database, so like this one, for example, the database for it is called Barkwire Spring. So if I pSQL into Barkwire Spring, I can go, all right, what's going on in here? All right, so there's a dog table. Did something actually get added to the dog database? Did I do this right? So then I might say, hey, show me everything from the dog table. Okay, so there's one record in there. And when I run this, I see the one record come back. Cool, got it. And so then I might go back to screwing around with the thing. But like a lot of the time when you're poking around in a database, it's for stuff like that. It's like troubleshooting.
This may be a stupid question, but is this Markdown that you're looking at?
No, not a stupid question at all, because it kind of looks like Markdown tables.
Yeah.
No, it's just a Postgres-y kind of format that's supposed to visualize rows and columns, but it's not otherwise significant. But that is a lot how tables and Markdown look.
So with the format of like these tables, is this kind of why like SQL and Excel like work hand in hand? Like I know you can import like stuff from SQL into Excel and stuff, and it just auto formats.
Yep, rows and columns, man. So yeah, the spreadsheet analogy is that a record is a row in a spreadsheet. A column in a database is a column in a spreadsheet, and a table in a database is a sheet in a spreadsheet.
So can it be loaded the other way around? You enter it in Excel and upload it to your database?
Like there's like a way that you can do that.
Okay.
Trying to think. Let's see. See, nothing there. Let me see if the desktop software will do it. I'll bet this data provider will let me connect to a database. Yeah. So I could like view a database in spreadsheet software. Like, it's not a huge jump to do it, but yeah, I'm not seeing an automated tool for it. Something that I've done is, all right, so for our full stack architecture looks like this, where a client asks something for a server asks something from a database. Well, these just like communicate over protocols and stuff. They don't actually know what's on the other end. Your Angular client doesn't know that there's a Spring Boot server running over here. All it knows is if I give this an HTTP request, I get an HTTP response back with the thing that I want. So it's the same thing with databases. And I actually made a spreadsheet that was a database, which is a crazy common concept now. It was not like 5 years ago when I was doing this. It was actually considered like the stupidest thing you could do. But I had even less time to build an LMS for that class. And so it started out as all Google Forms. Like people would submit their assignments on Google Forms and those would go into a sheet. And so then I started combining those sheets, and then I wrote like a web like interface for those sheets. I think I showed this a little while back. It's the Simple Sheets plugin. And I wrote a whole like database-ish interface for working with a spreadsheet as if it were a database. And so you can update particular rows, and you can add rows, and you can wipe out a sheet. You could have like sample data that you seed something with, because we had like a production or a development in a production server. There was like the concept of migrations, which are like versions. So like maybe a column exists in one version, but it was added, so it didn't exist in a previous version. I kind of went bonkers with it, and I actually got an email from the product manager for Google Sheets who was like, hey, we can't see your data, but I'm super curious what you're doing, because we don't like see this use pattern very much. So that was something. But yeah, there's a lot in common between databases and spreadsheets. Now, like, truth of the matter is, they are better suited for their respective tasks. A spreadsheet is a giant calculator. A database is a like data storage and retrieval thing, and they are much better at their respective tasks than they are at each other's tasks. But yeah, if you can use VLOOKUPs in spreadsheets, cool, that's joins. It's the exact same concept. More questions about dirty bases?
Were you going to show us how to edit?
Oh, sure. So the queries that I was just doing a second ago, T-SQL. So like those kinds of, oops, not that. So those are all my Sql queries. In here, select all from I. Okay, so those are called select queries. Select is about reading data, and that's kind of it. Let's say I wanted to add some data to this. So if reading stuff is a select query, adding stuff is an insert query. So I could say insert into, and this table is called I, insert into I, that's grim. And then I need to say which columns I'm going to insert. I need to find out if that ID is auto-incrementing because I suspect that it is. If it is, I don't want to add the ID. I want to let the database create the ID. So I say, hey, can you describe I? It's an integer. It's not null. It's a primary key. But otherwise, I don't think it auto-increments. So cool. I'm going to insert into I ID, I color, and username. So those are the columns that I want to add. Values, and then I need to match it to those. So that would be like 6, red, and then and if I had more than one, then you can just comma separate those. So it might be 7, blue, Kyle Coberly, and then whenever you're ready to run it, notice down on the side here, started with equals, then it was dash, and then this is acknowledging that we're inside of a paren that we haven't closed yet. So it's trying to give you hints about where you are in this process. And whenever you whenever you put a semicolon in, that says it inserted 2 records. And when I select all from I, there we go.
Could you do all of that in one line?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Totally.
I didn't know if it had to be broken up before you close the parens.
No, but if you do it all in one line, it ends up looking like this. Insert into ID, I color, username, values, 8, blue, Elise Coberly. Like that, and especially if you start having multiples on here. It starts getting a little unwieldy compared to splitting it up, and it gets a lot easier to make mistakes like that.
If you get stuck, like if you entered something wrong,
like I just did,
in that, Yeah, but I'm stuck in my parentheses from where I was trying to enter one.
Do so like if you do something like this, you select all from, and I go, because you haven't closed the query with a semicolon. If you do, oh, that got me all the way up. You do all that. Oh no, I'm stuck. Most of the time, if you just add a semicolon, it'll just finish the query and error out.
And if it doesn't, just do the Q.
Well, no, you'd want to use Control D, because you can only use Q if you're already at the prompt and you see this little equal sign, because you're like not in the middle of another command.
Thank you.
But yeah, Control D is your like panic, get me out of here.
I was surprised that you didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just surprised that whenever you use the command insert, it wasn't in all caps. It's lowercase.
SQL is not case sensitive. The convention is to use capitals for keywords. Select all from, and then lowercase for stuff that's like specific to your query.
Yeah, when you have a long stream of the commands, you're looking for those the all bold,
right,
so you can find them really fast. Because I was used to looking at like huge amounts of stuff, and you'd search through to find all the selects, so you would look for all those.
Yeah, it makes them stand out a lot more, and it does come in handy with bigger queries. Helps with the syntax highlighting looks a lot better too. So like. So yeah, even this like into, it's a little bit easier to tell that that's boilerplate when that's capitalized. Versus the stuff that's not capitalized, that's my code. That's my database, not the SQL language. A lot nicer when that stuff jumps out at you.
I think you actually just kind of addressed what I was, because that seemed very bulky and unwieldy, but we can do all of the initial table stuff in VS Code, and then you're just more looking at the data in the command line. Okay, exactly. That's what I was like, it felt so unwieldy that this is what I was looking for. Cool.
So, is it dash quote? Maybe it's that. So 2 other terms that might be useful. Changing the structure of the database, which is what that is. These are part of migrations. The idea is that, all right, I start with these 2 tables, and then over time I make another migration to the next state of the database, which adds another table and adds another column to this. It changes username to user ID, whatever it is. And then these we call seeds. So this is like starter data. But yeah, you can totally put those in SQL files and then run those with that -f flag. And it's pretty common too to do something like this, where you drop the table that's already there and then recreate it. Because like right now in my hair and eye color database, I added all those records to I. Select. So I added all those records. If I want to just get a fresh start and be like right back where I was, run that again, and now when I'm back over here, I've got like a consistent starting point. And so when my web server adds 1 million records and deletes a bunch of my starter stuff and whatever else, you can just do that, and then you're back to your starting point. It's good for testing. It's good for all kinds of different things. But yeah, your like structural stuff and your like starter data, write that in a SQL file and then run it. Questions? What you got?
I got one. Maybe it's just because I'm screwing up the syntax here or something. I was just playing with it, and I tried to link the two tables because I want to say, give me the username from the eye table, give me the eye color and the hair color, right?
Yeah.
And so I was trying to do inner join, but when I hit enter, it keeps not liking the equal sign in my inner join. It keeps saying that's where my error is, and I'm like, why? That's the syntax. It's
let me take a look.
Okay.
It's inner join on. Or not.
See what this what gives me when I say this. It says syntax error at or near the equal sign.
Oh no, sorry. You need to say what you're inner joining. So you need I inner join hair. So press up.
Okay.
And then move back to the inner join. So it's going to be inner join hair.
Oh, so I do hair first.
Yeah. So hair on. I.username equals hair.username.
Okay.
Try running that. There you go.
Nice. Thank you.
Joins are out of scope for this lesson. I've got some readings and some exercises and stuff on that. They're conceptually very difficult. Luckily, you can also just follow some like dumb rules and just do them that way every time, and like you'll be fine. I think that's what most people do with joins. All right. Any other questions about basic SQL stuff?
Yes. When talking about the syntax here, what's going to be the big difference between single and double quotes? Because while I was playing with it, I tried to add a value and use double quotes, and it gave me some interesting errors. When I went back and did the single quotes, it all went through just fine.
Yep. That's one of the things that's different between all of these different database platforms. Postgres, if you're trying to say that like something is this text value, single quotes every time. But like in MySQL, that's backticks. Or no, sorry, you use backticks for column names and table names. And I think you use double quotes for string values. Like, that's what I mean by like, these are barely even different. They're just different enough to be annoying. But yeah, when you're just trying to say that this is some text value, always single quotes in Postgres.
And values, not just value. That also gave me an error.
Yes, correct.
Cool.
I saved some cheat sheets from Code Academy on SQL because I am a pro member. So if anybody wants me to email those, just send me a private message.
Hell yeah. Other questions?
One more. I'm sorry.
No, hit me. That's what we're here for.
You were talking about adding some data to the table, and you weren't sure if the integers were adding up by themselves. How would you get it to do that?
So the keyword is auto incrementing, or auto increment, sorry. And it looks like that. When you're defining what the shape of the table is. Oh man, do you automatically get that with primary key? I don't think that's true. Serial, the serial data type. Although I swear there's a different way to do that too. That's how you do it manually. Oh man, that's gonna drive me nuts. Am I having a stroke? I swear to God, there's something other than serial for that. Whatever. So what we would do is if we edit that Heron iColor SQL file, and instead of making this an integer, we make it a serial. Now it'll auto increment. And so what's kind of cool about that is now we can leave these IDs off of the insert statement. Like so. And they'll get generated automatically. So if I do pSQL, Heron iColor, run that file, and then pSQL, Heron iColor, then if I look, select all from I, they still get the IDs added sequentially. And if I add one, so if I do like insert into iColor username values black Kyle, like that, and I run the query again, automatically gets 6. Now, what's kind of interesting about that is I'm curious if serial does this. If I rerun that SQL file a couple times and then hop back in. Oh no, it still did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't have to reset it. Sometimes like Postgres will keep that sequence separate from like the actual data. And so I was half expecting this to be like 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. There you go. That's slick.
Hey, Kyle, what command, when you were first checking it out, when you were looking at the table, what command was it you put in to check to see if it was the auto?
So \DT gives you the table names. \D and then a table name gives you all of the details about those things.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
And so this is the serial part, is that its default is whatever the next value of this sequence is. Other questions about basic SQL stuff?
Can we have this video uploaded this afternoon?
Yeah,
if
totally.
we wanted to go back and
I'll
watch
upload it right this now.
Thank you.